23 years old, I just set up the company. I didn't have a business plan, I didn't think about it, and it was a disaster. But I did it. Doing this challenge for 200 kilometers on Thursday, I don't know how it's going to go. It could be a disaster. It could be the worst experience of my life. But the best way to start is just put it out there. Just say you're going to do this and then start working towards it.
Now, in an industry where there's 9,000 other companies competing for business in the same city, it must be a challenge to stand out. Well, this guy knows exactly what to do. Because not only in March in 24 hours did he run 100 kilometers, he's about to run 200 kilometers in 24 hours. Now, he's doing it for a worthwhile charity for some children in Malawi, where he wants to raise enough money to build a school. But why? This conversation is deep. It's emotional, and it deals with trauma. The incredibly successful, tough, and ultra runner, Sam MCone.
We live in a world today where there's a lack of ability to care, and that's the biggest problem. I think we should all try to do more good. You should do it for two reasons. One, because it is needed, but the second reason is because I believe that that's the way to live a fulfilled, happy life.
You never, ever, ever allow somebody else's opinion or judgment of you to matter. First of all, you can't control it, and secondly, how do you even know it's right? Sam, thank you for coming to join us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to get you on here. Many people might say, not another real estate person.
There's enough.
I don't think there can ever be enough because of how big the industry is and how much it's grown and how much of an impact real estate has had on Dubai over the course of the last 25 years. It really has been remarkable. But today isn't all about real estate. There's a lot more to you, okay? Psycho, long distance runner and all that kind of stuff, which we'll get into today. But first of all, I think what's different about you is the context that we need to put on this. You came to Dubai at the age of?
Well, 2 years old.
And you've been here now all of your life?
Yeah, I did a stint I was in Barcelona for 9 years. When I moved there when I was 13. Used to play a lot of tennis, tried to become a tennis professional, didn't pan out, and then after university came back to Dubai. So it's 36 years, I suppose 27 of those in Dubai. But even when I was in Spain, my family was here. So Dubai's always been home.
So you're not like one of those people that has come over here thinking there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. This really was home when you've built your business in your own backyard.
Yeah, it's always been home for me. And it's, I've seen Dubai evolve over that time. I remember when I was growing up here, families used to go home for the summer. Like the fathers would stay, so my dad would stay, and we would go to Belgium because that's where my mum was from. And we would be gone for 3 months of the year. And as soon as we got there, schools wouldn't be finished in Belgium, and you'd have me and my brothers running around. And of course, people would ask, who are these kids? Where are you from? Why are you not in school? And so forth. And I'd say, okay, I'm from Dubai. And so where's that? Okay, United Arab Emirates. Where's that? I'd basically just go Arabia. And then finally they'd catch on. Okay, fine. And it was only when actually the Burj Al Arab was built. That was the first time that it kind of put Dubai on the map in any sort of fashion. So yeah, I've seen Dubai go from relatively being an unknown to what it is today. And obviously when I'm in Belgium, I was there this summer, as soon as I mention I'm from Dubai, it's like, people ask a million different questions and super excited. So I've really seen a change in how it's perceived globally as well.
Did you ever imagine when you were a kid living here that this place was going to turn into what it turned into today?
I don't think I thought about it too much as a kid, but it doesn't surprise me because I think the biggest thing that Dubai has going for it is mindset, and it's always had it. It had it when we were growing up here in the 90s. It built the world's most famous hotel in 1999. So it's been in the DNA of this city for the longest time to try to build the best city in the world. And it's only post-COVID that that's being recognized globally and that people are really starting to move here in droves. But I've always felt that Dubai has been trying to be the best version of itself. And that's why it's always moved relatively quick and it's always looked for ways to make those improvements. And it's been doing it for my whole lifetime. And it was even doing it back in the 80s and 70s as well.
That small pearl
Yeah.
diving trading post that was down at the creek
Yeah.
all of those years ago. I go hiking at the weekends and I see the archaeological digs that are out there in Malaya, in the desert and the mountains and whatnot. So we can see the history of the country goes back many, many thousands of years. I think people forget about that. They think it's just new and it's shiny and it was nothing before. When you look at how it's grown over the years, what are the real pros and the real cons of this city because of that growth?
I think the best thing that Dubai's got going for it is a melting pot. So, there's a lot of Brits here, but there's also a lot of Indians and Europeans and even South Africans, Spanish, you name it. And somehow we've all managed to come together in the city and it works. And we have mutual respect for each other, be it different races, different nationalities, language. We all sort of manage to get along somehow. And I think that's great. I remember growing up, my best friend was from Papua New Guinea. So him and me, 3, 4-year-olds running around, loving life. And that's something that I don't think you find in many other places around the world. So I think that's fantastic. On the negative side, where I think Dubai is falling short is that the commercial angle is sometimes the only angle. It's really what we drive. And I think we have to start sometimes putting a little bit more of a social spin on things, right? And obviously, we've seen in other places around the world where that's maybe going too far and causing its own issues. But, there were stories, I remember, what was it, when the floods happened, I think April 2024, so a year and a half ago. And we were actually away, we were in Holland, my wife and I. And when we came back, we heard about this story about this guy who had a building collapse on him during the rains, right? And he was a worker at the time, basically driving cars around. He didn't have any insurance, and he ended up in Rashid Hospital, and they were taking care of him, but minimal care. And no one was, there was no government intervention or anything that was out there to help this guy out. And his whole life was ruined. I mean, he had rods going through his body, his teeth had all been knocked out, and it really needed someone to step in. And we stepped in, my wife and I, and we sent him back to Sri Lanka, and we've supported him ever since to try and make sure that he's got a decent life. But that is where the social angle does come in. And I always say that Dubai is the most capitalistic city in the world. And I think that is one of the reasons for its success. If you want to succeed here, you've got to be the best. You've got to strive to be the best at everything you do. But I do believe that there is a social angle that could be played a little bit here. And I know that there's efforts to do it here and there, but I don't think it's enough for what this city could really need to be the best version of itself.
It's really interesting that you say that. When you think about that, it's like, what do they need to do? What, if you were to give 3 ideas to the government, Sheikh Mo was with us today. Oh, Sheikh Hamdan was with us, and we were having a coffee and a shisha and whatnot. And you said to him, like, if you could do these 3 things, what would they be?
I think air quality.
Okay.
I think that would be one that I would.
Well, they control the rain, so I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how to go about it, but I was watching a documentary on Singapore, and obviously that's fascinating city, right? That kind of went through a similar journey to Dubai, right? It was considered a slum. And one of the things that they did, I think it was in the 70s or 80s, but they had a campaign to make the city green. And they suddenly started planting green all over the place. And I know that there's been pockets of that across Dubai, but I don't think it's enough. I think we could really push. I know technically it's a desert, right? So there's a lot of questions about how green it could become. But I do think we could be doing a lot on that front to try and make this city a little bit more livable. And again, I think that would tie in with making more pedestrian friendly. We all know how important it is to move, to walk. And obviously, we spend a lot of time in our cars in Dubai and there's a lot of traffic. But fair play to the government. They are making a lot of inroads there, be it bike paths or more pedestrian friendly. But again, I think they could drive that a lot more. And I think, cost of living is a concern here in Dubai. we spend a lot of time talking about the very wealthy, right? There's a lot of people that have done very well for themselves in Dubai, and you hear about it on Instagram and everyone flashing their successes and so. But the average person in Dubai is just trying to make a better life for themselves, and a lot of the times those are the people that are actually struggling to make ends meet because rents have gone up a lot, because school fees are extremely high. And I don't know if there's actually all that many people within that category that are actually able to save for a better life. So I think, it's funny. I'm in real estate, and there's a lot of talk about correction, right? Because we have had 5 very good years post COVID, and I think there will be a correction. But I think the correction will be in certain segments of the market. I think there'll be aspects which will be relatively protected from any sort of correction because they are in less supply. So the likes of, villas or townhouses or the high end, I think that is in shorter supply. But when we talk about the affordable market, we've seen hundreds of developers coming in, building affordable accommodation. And I think that's where we're going to see the correction. I actually think that that's a positive thing, because that will allow for the cost of living in Dubai to ultimately come down. If today you're paying 70, 75, 80,000 for a one bedroom in JVC, it would be great to see that at 60, 65, 70,000, right? That will make a huge difference for those people that are living in those kind of accommodation, and they'll be able to save that amount and send it back home or save for a down payment so they can get on the property ladder. And again, similar thing with schools, right? We've seen so many schools open up. That's good. It creates competition, right? So we're in this really weird dynamic where on the one hand, we want prices to go up and we want investments to be attractive here so that we can sell it as this proposition to the globe. But on the other hand, we also need to take care of the people that are actually living here. That needs to be affordable to some degree. And I think in the last 5 years, it has become for a lot of people unaffordable. And that is a concern.
Well, we've been here a long time, you and I. You've been here longer than me, but I've been here for 2 decades. I remember this being a problem once before. Coming up to 2008, there was a problem. The cost of rent was expensive. People were having to pay 12 months in advance, and so that was a problem. But then the cost of living meant that people started to leave because they just couldn't afford to live here. And if you think about the people that do a lot of those jobs that just can't afford to live here, they're like any part of the food chain. If you take one piece out, okay, it scuppers it and it's a house of cards for everybody else. And so how do the people, if they come out here, how do the people there then move along the process? So it could become that unaffordable. Now, what a lot of people do is they do the whole kind of, well, you don't pay income taxes, you have to factor that into the equation. But what a lot of people forget is that, let's just take the UK. You can take Holland, you can take Belgium as well as an example. If you're self-employed in the UK, you're not paying 40% tax. Okay? You're paying 20% tax and you're offsetting all of your business costs against your income. So in many respects, you're paying 10, 12, 15% tax. Now, of course, you have VAT that's higher, etc. But it's not as expensive as you would think from a tax point of view. When a punnet of strawberries here is 3 or 4 times the price of a punnet of strawberries in the UK, people feel it. When you go to a restaurant on a Saturday night and go to South Africa, go and have a meal for 2 with the finest wine and the finest steak you'll ever eat, and you'll struggle to spend £100.
Yeah.
Okay, over here you'd struggle to get through the door if you got less than £100. Yeah. That surely is something that would have a forever burning impact on people, because if you can't live because you can't afford to live, you've got to go somewhere else.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, capitalism, right? It corrects itself, right? And so right now, talking about real estate in general.
Hold on, you gave me 2 things. I want a third thing. What was the third thing you'd do to change things? Give me something else. You've been here a long time. God. I've got one.
Okay.
The way that the roads, the intersections work. I think that's the dumbest thing ever, where as the intersection, you cross over each other to get on or off the highway.
I mean, it's typical, right? People that come here to Dubai, first time they take a wrong turn, you end up going 10 kilometers in the wrong direction and then turning around to come back again, right? Yeah, I can't remember what the third thing was, but when it comes back to me, I'll let you know. Yeah,
it's an interesting city, a city that's just grown and grown and grown. And I used to remember driving down to Abu Dhabi,
Mm.
and you'd go down, and Abu Dhabi just seemed like this water everywhere. So much water. Yet here in Dubai,
Yeah,
not
very
much
limited.
water. Yeah, very limited by comparison.
Mm.
We're seeing now that people are saying is the best investment to make actually Abu Dhabi now, not Dubai. Not only from a lifestyle point of view to have a happy life, but could I get a better price per square foot? Could I get more for my money? And could I live nicer there?
Yeah.
What do you reckon to that?
So I'm actually heading to Al Reem Island tomorrow. So what I do in real estate today is I have the business, but when I work on transactions, I focus more on land sales. And the interesting thing is that it's become very difficult to buy land in Dubai for developers. The prices, let's say in Dubai Island, a year ago, you were paying about 300 to 400 dirhams per square foot on the GFA, the gross floor area. Today, you're paying double that.
Wow.
So it's shot up 100%. And obviously that increase then adjusts against the margins that they're making on the final sale price. And that's not unique to Dubai Island. We're seeing that in a lot of areas. So all of a sudden, developers are starting to look at other Emirates. And obviously we've seen RAK and what's happened there. Shob has launched in McCone. There's lots going on across the board. But if you take Al Reem Island, it's a waterfront development. You can buy a plot of land there and pay 200 dirhams per square foot of GFA. Whereas again, in a place like JVC, you're paying double that. So waterfront, right opposite ADGM, which is the equivalent of DIFC in Abu Dhabi, you're paying half the price of what you're paying in JVC. So and that's why I'm going to Abu Dhabi tomorrow, is because I've got a developer that I'm working with and they want to go check it out. They want to go see it. And I think this is what's happening. I think the UAE is becoming a little bit more the market rather than just Dubai. We've seen how well that's worked in Marjan Island in Ras Al Khaimah. We've seen Sobha do some launches in Quain and Sania Islands and be extremely successful. So it's showing that people are interested in Dubai, but they're also willing to expand outwards a little bit as well. And, Abu Dhabi has got some of the best beaches across all of the UAE. And it's an established city, and it's got, quite a large population that live there, that work there. So I think it's a very exciting market to explore. And I know a lot of people are talking about Saudi, and I can't claim to know too much about that, but I still feel like we have so much opportunity left in the UAE itself.
I agree. Now, talk to me about being an entrepreneur, a businessman, okay? Something that I've heard you talk about in the past, confess to being not very good at it in the early days, understanding how to be a businessman. You knew how to sell real estate, but not necessarily knew how to run and operate a business. What was that journey like for you at the beginning?
The one thing I had going in my favor was that I'm quite good at being pretty level-headed. So when things are going really good, I don't get overly excited. And when things are going quite shitty, I don't get too upset, right? I'm kind of just always feel okay about things. And I think that saved me, because the first few years were not that great whatsoever. I mean, they were pretty much a disaster. I went from being able to sell a lot of real estates, working for a company where I just had to focus on my own deals and my own clients, all of a sudden opening my own business and then having to worry about others. And that was something, I was 23 years old at the time, and I just wasn't prepared for it. I didn't have the know-how, I didn't have the training, and all of a sudden people were looking at me for answers that I wasn't able to give them. And not only that, but I lost myself as an agent as well. So all that income that I was used to making suddenly wasn't there. So very quickly, I found myself in a very difficult position. But again, going back to it, I didn't really think the situation was that negative. I sort of managed it, so let's just get through this month and we'll get through the next one. And, that gave me a lot of time. And that time was what I then used to learn how to do these things. It was the best form of education. If you want to learn accounting, open a business, have disastrous books, you'll learn how to fix your books and have decent accounting, right? And that's pretty much been the story for our entire business. It's a mess. We fix it, we learn how to do it, and then we can kind of put that to a side and it can then run. And we're sitting here, 12, 13 years later, where we've had a lot of experience of knowing and making these mistakes so that we can find ourselves in a position where we have a decent business. But I think being able to sort of manage that and not get too down when things were in a tough spot has literally been the saving grace of our business.
And not getting down, did that give you time to I mean, you're a delegator or a control freak?
I was very much hands-on with everything previously, but I'd say in the last couple of years, I've become a lot better at delegating, and surprised, the business has started doing a lot better.
Ta-da!
So yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of people in our business that do things a hell of a lot better than I do it. And I'm always, every time I try and do it myself, it just always flops, because I give it 60, 70%. And the moment I start getting other people involved, all of a sudden it takes off. And it's fascinating. And again, I don't know why, I try every now and again to revert back. I guess it's just who I am, but 100% it's the way forward for me.
When you think about that, it's like kind of like starting to build a business, thinking you got to accomplish everything, get it done, but not realizing. I think you see some real estate brokerages and actually other industries too, where people who are alike partner to start a company. So 3 salespeople partner say, right, we're going to set up a business together, and they all possess exactly the same skills. And so when they go into business, it's like, well, who's going to do accounting? Well, not me. Well, that's you, isn't it? That's like, who's doing operations and whatnot? But the smart people try and find people that have the skills that they don't have.
Well, I mean, I think half the time we end up landing on something, like exactly what you mentioned there. Like right now in our business, we've got 3 partners. So I set up the business, but I have a friend of mine who I played tennis with when I was younger. He moved over here. He worked with us as an agent for a couple of years. He was very good. He became a partner in the business. So he's the second person. And then we had an intern that joined us in 2017 in marketing, constantly worked towards the business, trying to make it better and better. His salary increased slowly, and eventually became a very important part in our whole operation, and he's now a partner in the business. So that's a nice story in itself as well. But what we've landed on now is all of a sudden we've got Yasir, who is the natural born salesperson. It's just who he is. He sort of like thrives in chaos, right? You have Anandu, who's very much the marketing side of things, but also the one who's quite good at giving orders. He's kind of got that side to him that he can be a bit tougher on people, something that both Yasir and I don't have. And then you've got me, who's a little bit better at kind of seeing the bigger picture of things. And maybe it's because I've been in the business for a bit longer and I've had to kind of do different aspects. But I sort of pride myself on spotting when something's not quite right and then helping find the way forward in that. So we've landed on that. We have 3 people now that are 3 very different individuals with different skill sets, different weaknesses, but we can complement each other in the right way. And I think that's also been a big factor towards the success that we've had in recent years. But I can't say that we sat there 4 years ago saying, hey, he's good at that, I'm good at that. No, I think half the time you just land on these things. And, you imagine in the early days that you're going to click in these right ways. But a lot of the times you do have businesses that end up with just, 3 individuals that are exactly alike. And then these big parts of it just get lost behind because no one's paying attention to that.
How many real estate brokerages are there in the UAE?
Last I've heard 9,000.
9,000.
Yeah.
How do you stand out in a sea of companies?
We did social media for quite a while. I did that personally. We decided that we wanted to get known in the market a little bit more, and we saw social media as being the best way to do that. So from summer of 22 until summer of 24, so about 2 years, I did 350 videos, reels on Instagram, TikTok, and so on, just trying to provide education for the real estate market. I would say that was probably hands down the best move we ever did to stand out. We were consistent with it. We tried to add a lot of value, and over time it really paid off and we became known. But other than that, there are the conventional routes, we obviously platforms like Property Finder, Bayut and so forth, where you can put your listings up. But the problem with those spaces is they're extremely competitive, right? So many of the companies are on there, and trying to make a name for yourself within that field is extremely difficult. But, I'd say that trying to stand out isn't what you should be focusing on. You should be focusing on providing value to a certain group of clients. That can be a big group, it can be a small group, but you should be very, very good at providing that value to that group so that they constantly refer the business back to you, so that they appreciate the work that you do, and the success will follow that. And that the longer I do this job, the more I realize that that's the recipe for success. Just before we started this podcast, you were mentioning about selling a villa in Arabian ranches, right? Don't come to me. I'm not your guy. There are companies out there that are so much better at selling villas in Arabian ranches. It's not what we do, right? But if we've got clients that are internationally and they want to get that first insight into Dubai's real estate market and get genuine good advice and then make that decision, then McCone Properties is a good place to come. And we do have secondary markets within Dubai that we are very successful at. But, don't focus on standing out. It's too noisy. Focus on finding areas where you can then stand out in that specific area. And that will be a good recipe for success.
That's interesting. So then, if everybody did that, you think that would be better for everyone?
I think you'd... Well, I mean, again, I think 9,000 companies is too much. It's just, you can't survive. I mean, you just very quickly got to do the maths, right? So in an average month, we're talking 12,000 sale transactions. In a good month, that might be 18,000. So let's call it 18,000. That means 2 sales transactions per company. That's not a market, right? So I think there's too many companies, but I do think that by focusing on exactly what I said previously, I think enough companies could have good business models in place to succeed.
When you look at the market here and you understand it and you think about how you build your business going forward, do you look at the market? Do you look at your competition? Do you give yourself people to compete against? Do you set yourself a goal? How does it work for you as an individual thinking about your business?
I would say previously we looked at competition a lot. We had, in my mind, there were certain companies I wanted to emulate. I felt that they had really built something that was very, very successful. And it's your typical names, right? You're a Spas, Allsop, FAM, Driven, right? Names that have been around for a while. But as I've managed to grow the business and make it more successful, I've looked internally a lot more. So you start looking at the areas within your own business where you feel you're falling behind and that you can sort of make those improvements. So I think that's natural. I think in the beginning you're a bit lost, right? So you're looking at examples that can teach you what you need to do moving forward. Once you've got enough of those examples, you start realizing the things you need to be doing just in different aspects of your business. So nowadays, I don't think we look that much externally. We focus more internally on what we need to do better. And that typically drives our success, I'd say.
Talk to me about your journey with social media. I know you mentioned it just a few minutes ago that you made a load of videos, but can you remember making your first videos?
Yeah. I mean,
was there someone either in your office or someone you'd watched that said to you, Sam, we need to make some content, mate?
Yeah, so Anandu. So, I mentioned the marketing guy that started as an intern. So we wanted to do this social media thing, and we were trying to decide who we should use to do it. And we were thinking about certain agents in our business, and should we hire someone specifically for that? And every single person we landed on, we realized that there was inherent risks. I mean, the main one being that any of them could leave the business. So we decided pretty quickly that it needed to be me. And just to give you a bit of background, I've never been a user of social media. I've not had Instagram on my phone. I was never active on Facebook. I just never got into that world, and I don't enjoy it particularly. So for me to kind of take that role was really a leap of faith. So we brought this external agency in, and they had worked with other influencers in Dubai real estate. So they knew what they were doing. And the first thing they said to me was, look, you're not going to like what we tell you to post, but you're just going to have to do it. Trust us. We know what we're doing. And if you're willing to do so, this will work. If you're not willing to do so, it's going to flop. And the very first video that they have me do was walk through my office saying, hi, my name is Sam MCone, and this is my first TikTok. That's it. Something as stupid as that. And I'm walking through the office, and all the other agents are just looking at me going, what is this doing. And I did it, and it didn't really do much. But then we did a second and a third, and then I can't remember which video it was, but it was the fifth video or something. And we basically agreed that one of their guys would just walk up to me and say, "Hey, Sam, you've got a weird accent. Where are you from?" My father's from New Zealand, my mom's from Belgium, but I grew up in Dubai. That's all I said. And boom, all of a sudden that video took off.
Really?
Nothing to do with real estate. But I don't know what it did, maybe 10,000, 20, 30,000 views, whatever it was, but it was the first one that hit the algorithm. And what was great about that is it validated exactly what they were saying. So all of a sudden we were like, okay, let's listen to these guys. There's a method to this in some way, right? And then we just started posting, right? And it was a very difficult experience because I posted a lot of videos that I felt extremely uncomfortable posting. I did a lot of videos where I would ask people how much they pay in rent, right? So I'd go up to pretty much a stranger in a lot of instances, how much are you paying for rent? And then we'd go around their apartment. And those were some of the best videos, the ones that got the most views, because people are very interested in where people live. It's sort of quite intimate, right? And then I have a bunch of agents. To this day, they still do this. They every time they see me, they go, "How much do you pay for rent?" You know, so taking the piss, right? And so, there's a lot of negatives. I remember even like one of the funniest experiences for me personally was I downloaded Instagram probably about a year in, and I just went to go see how I was doing, right? I really put a lot of effort into not focusing on that whatsoever. But on this day, I downloaded the app and I went into my last video and I just opened the comment section. And the very first comment I read was, "Can someone shut this guy up? He sounds like a little bitch." And I was like, delete. I just deleted the app, right?
The whole app?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just, I told myself I was not going to get into this. And that very first experience going back into it was a reminder of exactly why I shouldn't be doing it, right? It's, we all try things, right? But when you try things, you leave yourself prone to being criticized. And the best tool for me to actually be consistent at it was to not pay attention to any of the noise. And so that's what I did. And we did 350 videos. We amassed, I don't know, I think about 92,000 followers on Instagram. And the most important thing was that it did exactly what we intended it to do. It put McCone Properties on the map. And even today, we have people that join our business. And one of their key reasons was because they used to watch our videos back in Kenya or wherever it was. And they were really inspired by what Dubai's real estate market was all about. So, as long as your why is strong enough, the rest of it kind of ends up not mattering. And that was a key thing for us.
How many videos did you need to make before you became comfortable making videos?
I was still uncomfortable with it at the end.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, there was certain videos that started to become a bit easier. But even today, I mean, when I've been doing this running, I've been trying to post a bit of it on social media. I'm still uncomfortable. I hate it. I hate team meetings. Once a month, I get up in front of everyone and do a team meeting. I hate it. But I do it because it's my job. But no, for me, it didn't become any more comfortable. I got used to it. I got used to the discomfort, but there was still that knot in my stomach each time. And I don't think that will ever go for me.
Is that because you're shy or you worry about what other people think of you?
Yeah. I think we all do.
Do you?
I think so. I think some people are just very good at, so they're just very good at doing it again and again and again, that they almost become used to that discomfort. But like I said previously, it doesn't go. It's.
You don't think people enjoy it?
I think you can learn to enjoy it because there's a lot of positives out of it. But every time you put yourself out there, you're leaving yourself open to being judged, and being judged is a scary thing. So
why? Because
we all want to think the best of ourselves, and when you hear other people's opinions, it maybe doesn't match what you hope to think of yourself.
Okay, folks, let's talk about real estate. Now, a recent partnership that we've just established on the podcast is with AYS Developers. Luxury properties with high-end finishes from people that really understand the subject. Often in Dubai, you'll find stuff that is maybe substandard. With AYS Developers, you're not going to see that. You're going to see fantastic properties that you can buy, you can invest in, you can make a home on Dubai Islands and other places too. So go visit aysdevelopers.ae and check them out. I promise you it'll be worth the trip. I can see that clearly bothers you.
Yeah, it does.
So that might be your conditioning though. So let me give you the opposite of that. My mum used to say to me, say the following now. Okay, Mum. What you think of me is none of my business. She's like, say it again. What you think of me is none of my business. She's like, say it again. What you think of me is none of my business. She said, you never, ever, ever allow somebody else's opinion or judgment of you to matter. First of all, you can't control it. And secondly, how do you even know it's right? And so I was taught to go through this process. Okay, and when I first learned to sell, I was taught to go and get rejection. It was like I wasn't taught to go and get clients. I was taught to go and get rejection. And my boss at the end of my first 3 days of my job, he said to me, I want you to make 100 calls and don't you dare get someone to say yes. And I was like, the first day, I'm just a kid, I don't know. And I make 100 calls and nobody says yes. Second day, I've got my script and everything else. I make 100 calls and 1 or 2 people could have said yes, but I talked them out of it. But my boss at the end of the day gave me a high five and a hug. He said, brilliant job, well done. Third day, same thing. Made 100 calls. When I made those 100 calls and got 100 no's, gave me a hug at the end of the day. Said, see you tomorrow. And what he was doing, he was conditioning me to understand that rejection. And we all know in sales, you've been doing it long enough, that rejection's part of the game. Most people are going to say no. But one of the fundamental problems people have when it comes to creating content is they worry what somebody might think. It's like when they post something on WhatsApp stories, knowing that their whole contact list can see that WhatsApp stories. It's when people post something on Instagram, worried that all of their contacts can see it. When you realize that only 2 or 3% are even seeing it anyway, it changes that a little bit. But being uncomfortable at the beginning, I get completely. I really enjoy it now, though. I don't look at it as being anything other than fun. After I finish with you today, I've got to make some videos, and it's like I get to make videos.
Yeah. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I enjoy expressing the thoughts that I have. So I enjoy this, and I enjoyed putting content out there that I believed in. But I never enjoyed being in front of the camera. And I never enjoyed, well, I'd say it probably was the camera thing that was probably the biggest thing for me, right? Speaking one-to-one for me is a lot more comfortable than speaking to a wide audience or speaking in a setting where that's kind of not supposed to happen, right? And, maybe me having to not have the app and not engage in it was my way of dealing with what I was uncomfortable. It was my workaround. Yeah. Right. I mean, it worked, right? Fundamentally.
I've never heard anyone say what you said, and I think it's fascinating. So carry on.
Yeah. I just know that I was so uncomfortable with it that had I had the app and I paid attention to it, I would have never continued. It would have eaten me alive. It would have absolutely crushed me.
Other people's judgment.
Yeah, 100%. And even now, I mean, even having these idiot agents make that joke, it pisses me off. It doesn't just piss me off, it gets to me. And they would love that. I know they would love that. And that's the thing that pisses me off even more. So it's a whole thing. Yeah.
I made a video once standing on my balcony here on the Palm. I can't even remember what it was about. And the first comment that came through was, who the effing hell do you think you effing are? You don't even effing live on the Palm, you effing see you, and whatever it may be. Yeah. Very, very, very disgusting, but nonetheless it happened. And my response to that person when I read the message, are you okay? No response. On the following Friday evening, I go for a walk with one of my neighbours. sundown, 6 p.m. We talk about the day and the week, sorry, and how she's got on and how I've got on. And we literally walk up and down the front. This larger character walks towards us both, and we're walking together, and we separate as he goes through us. And as he walked through us, he went, "Are you Spencer Lodge?" And my instant reaction was, "Yeah, I am. Yeah, you know. Oh, he spotted me on social media. He knows me. Yay! There's a follower." And he said, "I owe you an apology." And I was like, "For what? What's your name?" He told me his name, Scottish guy. "I owe you an apology." He goes, "I wrote an abusive comment on your video because I didn't realize you lived on the palm, and now I see you walking on the street. I realize you do, and you're on my street, and so I just want to say I'm sorry."
Yeah, I mean,
so what I'm trying to say here is that I use those things as fuel.
yeah.
You and I are different, and no one's right and no one's wrong here. But I find it fascinating that starting the video journey, I get the fear, but 300 odd videos in, realizing what it brings you. Because you don't do it for no reason. You do it because it brings you an audience, and you're educating that audience. You're bringing value to that audience, and that audience are watching your further content because they value it too. But you're uncomfortable because in case somebody says, "What a stupid accent," or.
But it's also the thing I'm quite proud of, like the fact that despite having been uncomfortable, I kept going for that long, right? I have no problem being uncomfortable, but I'm not going to deny that I was uncomfortable. And I think that's also important, because I think there's also a lot of people out there that might not ever become comfortable with it. They might not find that joy, but they might still need to do it. And then, okay, suck it up and do it. And I think that's an important thing that we all have to live by a little bit more, is that, especially in a city like Dubai, we're constantly seeking the things that make us comfortable. But a lot of the times it's the opposite. It's the things that we hate to do that actually bring us the most value. So I don't know, like, I get what you're saying, and I fully appreciate that. But what I'm saying is that if you're going to go down the journey of doing content or whatever it might be, and you find yourself 200-300 videos in and you're still uncomfortable with it, that's okay. Just keep going. Just find a way to keep going.
Because hold on a minute. Let's segue here, because this is really important. Let's segue to another form of uncomfortable.
Okay.
I think making content is easy. You think it's uncomfortable, but you do it. Okay. Let's talk about what I would find extremely uncomfortable, yet you are stepping into right now, and have done such a remarkable job of doing so far. You're going to be running 200 kilometers in 24 hours in the next few days.
Yeah, on Thursday night, yeah.
Okay. So we could turn it around right now, because you could say, well, how does someone even start to thinking about 200 kilometers in 24 hours to raise money for charity? And I want to focus on the reason you're doing it for, but let's just talk about the how first.
Don't think about it too much. So just do it. Just put it out there. And that's something I think I'm quite good at. So 23 years old, I just set up the company. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't think about it, and it was a disaster, but I did it. Doing this challenge for 200 kilometers on Thursday, I don't know how it's going to go. It could be a disaster. It could be the worst experience of my life, but the best way to start is just put it out there. Just say you're going to do this, and then start working towards it. And so a lot of time can be spent thinking, should I do this? Should I not? What's the consequence? So forth. You know, people ask me, how did I come up with the number 200 kilometers? I just thought 24 hours is a good amount of good number to run, right? It sounds good. I like it. How far can I go? And I thought 200 is kind of on the limit, right? I'm not really going to be able to stop that much. I'm going to have to maintain quite a consistent pace. And if everything goes well, I think I can pull it off. That's genuinely how I feel about it. I give myself about 50-50. And I like that. I like that sort of uncertainty about it. And then when it comes to the actual day, I mean, how do you start? It's as simple as you start. You put that one foot in front of the other and you keep going. And there's going to be moments where it's going to be absolutely horrendous, and I'm just going to have to remind myself of exactly that same way of thinking. Just take another step. And it will get better again, and then it'll get worse again, and sort of just go through this emotional roller coaster.
Okay, so this is really interesting. If you try and psychoanalyze this for a second, you're really uncomfortable with creating social media content, but you just accept it. No matter how it makes you feel, you still do it. And then you plan to run 200 kilometers. No matter how you feel, no matter how uncomfortable it might be, you're just going to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So where people in the earlier part of this conversation go, God, Sam, you're being a bit dramatic there. Making content's not that hard. Flip it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you try running 200 kilometers then.
But I'll tell you another thing. So I played tennis growing up, and my brothers will know this better than anyone else in this world. They know, this is going to sound so bizarre, they know that for me to run 200 kilometers is an easier challenge than for me to play a tennis match with you right now.
What the F?
The thought of standing on a tennis court today and facing someone, doesn't really matter what level they are, it just sends a shiver down my spine.
Is that because you failed to become a tennis professional?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. And my brothers always say to me, so the thing you have to understand about my brothers, they're twins. They look a lot like me. And we just have like a sort of deeper understanding of each other. So they can kind of intuit what I'm sort of going through, right? And they know that deep down, the real thing that I should be doing is I should be getting on a tennis court and playing as many tennis matches as possible, because that's my true trauma in some sense, right? And it's the thing I struggle to do the most. So yeah, there's another level.
Do you talk about that often?
No, I hate to talk about it.
So if I invited you to play a game of tennis,
I just wouldn't do
and
it. I just wouldn't do it.
if I invited you to come and teach me how to play tennis,
yeah, I'd teach you. Different, but a match.
So if you taught me how to play tennis, we went down to the tennis courts, and
Yeah,
you stood on the other side of the net and you started teaching me the backhands and whatever it may be, and I started getting a bit better, or maybe I was a bit better than you thought I'd be. I wasn't absolutely a beginner. That you'd be okay with that?
No, I wouldn't be. It would start to make me extremely anxious.
But you were a great tennis player.
I was good. I mean, in Dubai at the time, I was number one in my age group. And I won a lot of tournaments and went to Spain. In Spain, obviously, the level was much higher. But I was decent, right? Obviously, like anything, golf, football, there's so many that try, there's so many that don't succeed. But for whatever reason, for me, it's always been the ultimate test of my worth. Maybe it's something like dad in there. I don't know, because, you always want to like live. My dad was big into sports. Used to watch me and everything. You want to make your father proud. I don't know if there's some angle there at play. But, one of the things, I find business easy because I always relate it back to tennis. And when I'm having a tough day, I always say, at least I'm not playing tennis. And my brothers know about this. So that's the funny thing again. It's a whole thing. Yeah.
Do you feel like you let your dad down?
I don't know. It's so I went to Spain when I was 13. I also partly blame him, because the interesting thing was that when I went to Spain, I was also a very good student. I'd actually say I was a much better student than I was a tennis player. And I actually think a lot of the times that had I focused on academics, I could have done a lot more with my life in that aspect. Again, you never know where it's actually going to lead you to, right? So I think it's just a part of my life that's I'm going to say uncomfortable. I don't think that's the right word, but it's traumatic. And I know that sounds really weird, because you're talking about a kid going to play tennis in Spain. I mean, it's a luxury, right? But for me, at the age of 13, I was playing 4, 5, 6 hours of tennis a day. It was my job, right? And that responsibility meant a lot to me. And it never really worked. It really went down, and I would start kind of pretending I was injured in order to get out of matches by the age of 16, 17. And then, I mean, I should have stopped a long time before I did, but yeah, it was also one of those things you also don't want to sort of admit failure, right? But I do remember stopping tennis was a big relief.
And have you ever sat and talked to your dad about this?
In snippets, yeah. But I think he's also doesn't quite get it either. He's from New Zealand. He grew up on a farm. He went to boarding school when he was 11. All he wanted to do was, first 15 in rugby, play cricket. He loved sports, right? And he's so natural at it as well. And he's definitely the one that gave us, again, all of us boys, we sort of really had that athletic side to us. And I think he never had the opportunity to do anything like we did. So I think in his mind, it's like he gave us that opportunity. And in that sense, he did right by us. But I would flip it a little bit. And I would say that in many sense, he also created that responsibility, which could have been a good thing. But I don't know. I think I'm going to raise my son quite differently in that regard.
How?
Really, really pay close attention to what he gets the most joy out of. So right now he's 2.5 years old, and 1 minute he's mopping the floor. He loves it, or sweeping, whatever. The next minute he's got his little guitar. So we bought him a guitar and he puts it on with his strap and everything. He strums away. The next minute he's building houses or whatever. And I just want to pay very, very close attention to what it is that he loves the most. And I want to do that for as long as possible, because I feel like that will be the thing that he should do with his life. And it shouldn't be, there should be no should. Do you get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you, as a parent, think that your job is to be a parent or their friend?
Definitely a parent, at least at times, right? I do think we have to create a framework for them, because if not, I don't think they'll fit into society in a way that's healthy for them. So I do think it's important to create some sort of boundaries. But at the same time, I think it's also extremely important to be very encouraging on helping them be exactly what they want to be, even if they don't know what that is.
Is your job as a parent not to prepare them for life?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't think you can as a parent. If I look back at a lot of my experiences, they happen outside of the influence of my parents.
But that was you.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that's
But
your parents had the right roadmap for you.
I mean, when you say prepare them for life, I mean, if that includes also helping them make sure that they tackle the things that they're then going to be facing on their own in the right way, then yeah, sure, right? But ultimately, they're going to have to live their lives as well, and they're going to have to make their own mistakes. And I think a lot of parents...
Well, after growing up in the privilege of your household?
Yeah, they're still going to face that.
Liam Gallagher, or was it Noel? I think one of them, Noel Gallagher, said the other day when he was talking about his kids, he said, look, I grew up on a council estate. I had nothing. And so we did the best we could. He said, and the problem, we went out there and made a load of money, and people have said to me, you're not giving all your money to your kids, are you? He's like, well, I'm not going to stick them in economy when I'm flying in first.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really pertinent, because he said, I have been successful. They are going to enjoy the success that I've created. It's going to create other problems that they're going to have to deal with, but they're going to have to deal with those problems. And that's the life's trajectories that they'll have. But some parents are too soft. Some parents are too hard. There's clearly trauma from what your dad put you through with tennis that makes you think twice about how you'd go about it.
Yeah. And look, the thing about tennis is, again, like I mentioned previously, it set me up very well for business.
But then, then do you have gratitude for it?
I do, massively.
Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm traumatized, but I'm grateful.
It messed with me, but I'm happy.
Yeah, but again, it's I think that's life. Things aren't black and white. And I love my dad immensely, and I think my dad was exceptional as a father. he put his family first. Whenever he wasn't flying, he was at home with us, playing cricket, table tennis, taking us to tennis practice, right? He was the perfect father, but he didn't have these opportunities growing up. So he felt that the right thing to do was to give me those opportunities. I was given those opportunities, but with those opportunities came a sense of responsibility. So I'm most likely going to do the thing where I don't want to put that kind of responsibility on my son. What's right, what's wrong, we don't know. And different, there's also a lot of children that could have been in exactly the same position as me, and having gone through that whole tennis experience could have been the best thing for them.
Yeah.
So we can't sit here and pretend to know the right answer. We don't.
There's not a parent on the planet at a barbecue in Dubai this weekend that isn't bragging about their kid playing tennis in Barcelona at a tennis school, okay, if they've sent them there. Oh, yes, well, where's your son right now? Well, he's busy playing tennis in Barcelona. He's at an academy. He's very good indeed. So there's not a parent out there like that. So do you think that part of that was caused because you were brought up as an expat kid?
I don't know. I do remember being 13 years old and being extremely frustrated with Dubai. I don't know why that came all of a sudden. I had like very good childhood, but I remember there was this pent up anger at one point just before I left. And so I do think that leaving Dubai suited me. I needed to get out of the Dubai bubble. And obviously this is a conversation my wife and I have, and the idea of my son going to boarding school or tennis academy or whatever it is, it's a huge no for my wife. For me, it's like, I don't know. For me, it's kind of, I think that
So you want your son to go through the same trauma as you did?
The experience of leaving home wasn't traumatic for me.
Okay.
It was the tennis court. I can't explain it. It's a bizarre thing.
Yes, it is.
It is.
It's a serious mental block, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
And when you said that, the thought of going on like someone that played tennis at your level, going and playing a game of tennis, no matter who it is. Yeah. Alex, the cameraman, says, "Let's go play tennis," and you're like,
"Yeah, it's." But hey, we all have them.
Fascinating. Let's talk about why you're running 200 kilometers, because we got a bit off track here. There's obviously some things that are close to your heart. Tell me what it is, why, how you got involved in the first place.
So Sarah Brooke is someone I met when my wife and I went to Malawi in February 2022, and we went to visit the Sparkle Foundation with Golf for Good. And we spent a week there, and during that week we met the countless children that they provide education, nutrition, and medical aid to. And we saw the work that they're doing, and we saw the impact that that's having, right? So my wife and I just fell in love with that organization. And ever since then, we've always been supporting. So we've tried to help Sarah in whichever way we felt could have a meaningful impact. And so that's been done on a personal level for a few years now. About a year ago, I got my business, McCone Properties, involved. So every time we do a deal now, we allow the agents to put an amount towards the Sparkle Foundation, and then we'll match it. And so we've been able to raise a decent amount off the back of that. But we wanted to do something bigger. And I had Sarah in our house this summer, and she was telling me that she spends most of her time in Dubai now trying to raise money. And she was just kind of telling how difficult that is, right? And that she was really needing to get this extra amount. And they have this fourth site, which they want to build a fourth campus on, a school. And they didn't really see any which way that they could do so. And so after she had been there, I went on a run. And it was while I was having that run that I thought, okay, well, I've been looking for another challenge to do. Can we link these two things in? Because every time I've done some sort of event in the past, I've always just done it for myself. I've never had a cause behind it. And obviously it is a done thing, right? And I thought, okay, well, maybe we could tie the two things together. So then Sarah and I spoke, and she loved the idea straight away. And then we kind of just were brainstorming what sort of physical challenge could we put together. And that's where the 24 hours and 200 kilometers came together. So the idea is to hopefully raise 1 million dirhams so that we can then use that 1 million, which is the exact amount of money that they'll need in order to build that school in Malawi. And if they're able to do that, that will provide the support for over 5,000 children and families. So it's huge impact. Um, and it's a number which is a lot, right? I'm starting to realize now that I'm sort of in that fundraising field, but I still think in a city like Dubai, that's got to be possible.
I love that you're doing that. It's does it give you meaning?
Yeah. I mean, it's really funny because our business is fortunate enough to do a decent amount of business, right? So make X amount every day, week, month, whatever. And I had one of our agents, shout out to Gwen and Havid, they donated 10,000 dirhams the other day. And I was ecstatic. It meant so much. 10,000 dirhams to the business wouldn't mean that much. And so I find that fascinating that a dirham isn't necessarily a dirham. It can mean different amounts in different contexts. And going down this journey, and so far we've raised 80,000 dirhams from individuals. We've managed to raise a lot from some corporate sponsors as well, which is great as well. But it's really given me so much joy being able to bring in that money from those individuals and encourage them to give. And then I also know the impact that that's then going to have for those children in Malawi as well. So the whole thing is it's just a circle of joy. It really fills me with so much sort of enthusiasm. And, in an industry like real estate that is so competitive and, sort of game theory at its peak, I really, really enjoy being part of something like this.
You and I are very similar. We both care about something that matters an awful lot. Selfishly, it gives me meaning. And I know that you've just acknowledged that it gives you meaning too. Do you think that entrepreneurs that become successful on the whole should be doing stuff like this? I know we'll say yes, obviously, but do you think it's good for them?
I think so. On one of my runs, I listened to a podcast from Malcolm Gladwell, revisionist history, right? And I listen to like a lot of Rogan and Goggins and stuff like that. So that's quite like sort of masculine and sort of, but Malcolm Gladwell sort of on the other side of it. So I really enjoy that contrast. And he said something, I don't know how he phrased it, but he said, we live in a world today where there's a lack of ability to care. And that's the biggest problem, because that is a problem amongst the biggest group of people. We don't do enough for others. So you ask me about, should we as successful entrepreneurs try to do more goods? I think we should all try to do more good. It shouldn't just be the successful ones. I think we should all be looking and thinking, okay, what is it that I'm able to give back? And you should do it for two reasons. One, because it is needed. And we fail to see this a lot of the time, right? We all live in our own lives, be it successful or not successful, but there is so much need in this world today in so many different ways. People are in need, and it's our responsibility to help them out where we can. But the second reason is because I believe that that's the way to live a fulfilled, happy life. We all know of the examples of poor countries where they're a lot happier. Why? Because they live in societies that give more. And so I don't necessarily want to wait until I'm very successful to then go and give a huge amount. I want to do it now. And if people look at my business, they might see a nice big office, and we do a lot of deals. But I've got a fraction of the success of a lot of people in our industry. I'm nowhere near them, and I know that. But I want to do it now because it needs to be done now. And I think that we all should be doing it all times. We shouldn't wait until it suits us or where we have the extra amount.
Yeah, but okay, do it. Why do you need to run 200 kilometers and almost kill yourself?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because that's got to be something for you in return, isn't it?
No. I mean, look, I've said this from the very beginning.
Have you got $1 million dirhams in profits in your business that if you really wanted to, or in savings that you could give to the Sparkle Foundation?
Yeah, I could.
Okay. So,
but I mean, look, and I've said this from the very beginning, I'm doing this for two reasons. I'm doing this for the children, and I'm doing this for myself. I want to run 200 kilometers. It's a physical challenge that I want to put myself through. I've been looking for a challenge. I ran 100 kilometers in March. I want to do the next thing, I'm choosing to attach a good cause to it. So there is fundamentally a very selfish reason, because by doing this challenge, I'm able to spend less time with my family. I've had to sacrifice work commitments. There's been sacrifice that's gone into it, and all of that has been for selfish reasons. I want to do this. Again, maybe this can become a bit of a thing, and maybe I can also show others that these kind of amounts can be raised. So like I could spin that angle to it. But fundamentally, I want to challenge myself physically, but then I also want to see if this 1 million dirhams is possible. I really want to, there are some incredible athletes in Dubai, people who have, set world records for the amount that they've rowed or the distance that they've covered, covering 7 Emirates or so. And every time I look at that, I'm inspired by the physical challenge, but I'm always underwhelmed by the amount that they've been able to raise. It's not that much. And I've always felt that that's a bit mismatched. There's something going on there. And so what I wanted to do with this challenge was I wanted to also put in my sort of business brain, and I wanted to set an audacious amount, because I do think 1 million dirhams is quite a lot. And I wanted to find a way to get to that number by hook or crook. And so there's also that business angle that I'm really enjoying about this. And we're so far off the goal, but that's why I'm doing these podcasts, and I'm trying to reach out. And that's why I'm doing these stupid videos of me running on Kite Beach, filming myself. Again, I hate it, but I'm doing it because, again, it all feeds part of that sort of objective that we've set ourselves.
When you played tennis when you were living in Dubai before you went out, did you really enjoy tennis?
I always loved tennis growing up. I picked up a racket when I was 3 years old, and I was quite natural at it. And I was always nervous about it. So there was always this, I didn't want to lose matches, right? I wanted to win.
For who?
I don't know. Definitely, a huge part of it was for myself, sort of questioning my own self-worth. But yeah, I probably did want to make my parents or my coach or whoever else proud as well.
Very normal, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were nervous, but you enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
So when you got the chance to go to Spain,
yeah,
and your dad said, guess what? You go into tennis academy in Spain, you're great, and you're going to be, who was it back then? Pete Sampras, probably around about that kind of era.
I liked Rafter for someone, Pat Rafter.
Pat Rafter, okay.
Leighton Hewitt.
Okay, I remember all those. So, me, it's John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors, but anyway. When your dad said to you, look, do you want to go to Spain and play tennis? How did you react when he asked the question?
Yeah, so at that point, super excited. Like I mentioned, there was sort of, for whatever reason, I did want to get out of Dubai at that time, even though I was relatively young. Sort of enjoyed the idea of leaving. And, tennis was something I did really love, right? I was always questioning, right, where I sat in tennis. I know that from a very, very young age. But I was extremely excited. I mean, getting to Spain and being left there on my own was a whole different experience, and that was a moment. But that was fine. But I think I know where it all sort of slowly started to change a little bit for me, and that was when I think I very quickly realized I wasn't actually good enough. Because you have to imagine, okay, I'm quite aware. I don't consider myself delusional. I'm sort of a realist. Like I mentioned to you, I can recognize real estate companies for where they're at, and the ones that are ahead of us and the ones that are behind, that's fine. I'm okay with that. And it was a very similar thing for tennis. And I think at one point, probably when I was 13 or 14, I think I did the maths. And I just kind of realized, whoa, there's a lot of good players out there. And, I'm in this academy and there's maybe 100 kids or so, and maybe I'm number 60 or 70. And then how many academies are out there? And how many other kids are trying to make it? And then you kind of realize, okay, if you really want to make it in tennis, you have to be sort of maybe top 50 or top 100 or whatever. And, once I kind of started to think of it in that way, it just became like this race that I was way behind on. And then every every time I'd be on the tennis court, I'd be trying to like position myself against the others in any fashion. And am I moving up or am I moving down? And then, if I'd have a few bad games in a row, I'd sort of be moving down the pecking order. And I think this continued for about 9 years. It was, well, not 9 years, sorry. I was in Barcelona for 9 years, but I played tennis for 6. So from the age of 13 to 19, where every week, or every time I'd play a match, it was this constant judging of my self-worth and where I stood in the pecking order of tennis. And as I got older, I got worse. Like, I got better, but relative to my peers, I was falling behind. So it's an extremely deflating feeling.
Did you feel like a loser?
Yeah, God, big time. I felt like such a loser. And I think...
Were you ashamed?
I was ashamed at the time. I mean, I remember when I finished tennis and I went to university, and it was like so easy, and I felt so happy, because I didn't have this big burden. And by the way, I still have dreams about tennis. I still sleep, so I wake up and I'm like, shit. I'm like, no, this isn't happening again, is it? So yeah, it's I don't know. It's a weird thing, but it was, it was, I suppose the thing that makes it traumatic for me is that at a stage in my life, it identified, it was the thing that I judged my self-worth by. And so then not being very good, it made me feel like nothing.
There's no joy in that,
Yeah.
is there?
And, I would say that in sort of 36 years that I've been alive, I would say sort of 30 of them have been pretty good, right? Where I've felt, again, my school was good, always top grades. And then as soon as I got into university and as soon as I started real estate, all of that came very easy to me. But there's this period in between, these 6 years of tennis, where I wasn't a good version of myself, or at least that's how I see it.
I've watched you move around in your seat so much
Yeah.
as we talk about tennis. It's fascinating. Look, just as we come to a close here, as an older man talking to a younger man, you're about to do something that nearly no one else on the planet has done. There's only a tiny, tiny number of people out of 8 billion that have attempted, let alone completed, what you're about to do. Go back to March, same thing. Only a very small number of people have done 100 kilometers in 24 hours. You did that, and you're about to do this, and you're doing it for a good cause. That, in my books, that makes you a bloody good bloke. All right, so you should be really proud and get an enormous amount of joy out of this, because I for sure am in awe of what you're doing. So thank you so much for coming to share your stories. Thank you so much for telling us all about tennis in Spain.
Yeah.
I'm never going.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.